And away we go. Before I get into the usual stuff of this episode, I've been thinking about how I do podcasts, whether it be the Olympian show, the Intimistic. I still find some joy in discussing what goes on in the world and just giving my honest thoughts about it, even if people don't agree with it, which is okay. I'm getting, I'm going tirelessly, tirelessly about what I've been doing. And well, again, I still find useful what I'm doing in these episodes in recent times on both podcasts. I'm now I'm now growing or developing some kind of alternative perspective in regard to how other people I know who are close to me would think in regards to the episodes that I'm making. I've always been cautious. I've always been conscious about what people in my family and a handful of the friends I have think of what I say in these episodes, and would they concur in some kind of capacity? Or would there be instances that be like, I don't know, man, I'm not arguing with this. It is okay to have these emotions. I'm not going to argue with their opinions, and I will not try to convince people otherwise about what I say. What's important that we think for ourselves, embrace our individuality, and of course, most importantly, be the best version of ourselves we could be. That's what's been floating about recently in the last few recordings on both of my podcasts. I still find what I'm doing in these episodes useful, at least understanding what the world has been going on and getting my honest thoughts about what I am seeing before my very own eyes. I am now progressing more towards having an alternative perspective about what my friends and family would think of these episodes. I don't expect all of them to agree with what I'm saying. And I don't expect them to want to hear more about what I say. Let's do that. PTSD. I've been there myself at times. I do the best I can to handle such difficult situations from my own experience and my own unique way. And when I'm own way of dealing with what goes on in the world and living the state that we're living in as it is now. And also, well, now getting back into reading what me and the lads shared in our group chat, which this was something we had done in the earliest recordings of our podcast. Like, the first few times that me and the lads were having a discussion together, we were just discussing whatever social media posts was on our algorithm pipelines, and we just discussed, what do you like to think of this, or think of that? At some point, there wasn't much for us left to talk about on what's in our social media algorithms. And it then came eventually come down to the point of, okay, what do we talk about now? And we were like, you know what, that's a good question. It was two platforms that stood out to me in a moment in time where me and the lads weren't discussing too much in these episodes. There were these platforms called Ground News and Straight Arrow News. These apps for news aggregators, put it simply. What they do is take multiple news stories or articles from news outlets, bunch them all together to give a brief summary of what the story is all about, as well as a breakdown of which news outlets are owned by which group of people or individuals. So, yeah, when I started doing the specific types of podcast episodes with me, Eric, and Brett, and also at some point as well, along with Minor, we were just talking whatever comes to our minds and discussing whatever was going on social media. It's quite recently, in the last few weeks, as of this recording, on both podcasts, we've returned to that format. not because we found more stuff to share for us to discuss. I was getting bored with just reading different news stories on ground news, 3-hour news, and well, I'm okay with being familiar. At some point, I just get bored with it. I try to. I'm always in this mindset about trying to change things, or what else am I supposed to do? But at the end of the day, I still go on, and I develop as I go. One thing, finally, is also just finding the right words to describe something. Even when I do say something, it's not exactly how I wanted it to be. It sounded a lot better or a lot clearer than I was thinking of in my head about anything that I talk about, whether it be what goes on, the world, whatever content is on our algorithms or social media. Yeah. There's not much else for me to explain. So I think that's all there is to it. So with all that stuff out the way and said, now let's see what actually before one final thing, just something that really stood out to me. Before getting to what me and the lads had been discussing and what we have seen on our algorithms on social media, I'm on Facebook and this account, Europe Elect. This is a Northstat poll showing people in Scotland and the percentage of people in Scotland who approve of or want to be independent from the United Kingdom. In that poll, the results have shown 49% of United Kingdom Scotland respondents in regards to Scotland referendum independence, they responded no. 49% said no, meaning 51% of respondents replied yes. We do want Scotland to become independent. And polling results compared to the 2014 referendum results, the last time there was a referendum on Scotland's independence, the results that followed, 55% of Scottish people said no to independence from the United Kingdom, with 45% of Scottish people saying they do want Scotland to be independent from the United Kingdom. And as it turns out, while it's a very close call, it's very tight within a very margin of error, where there could be a chance if next time there is a referendum about Scotland becoming an independent country from the United Kingdom, it could be, not guaranteed, could be the case that Scotland becomes its own sovereign nation. To do whatever they want to do without having to rely on the UK and workers. So yeah, that's my understanding and my perspective on the situation. Finally, let's see what me and the lads have said in regards to whatever the heck is in our pipelines. So, firstly, an Instagram post. Well, that's new. And it's so new. By the account Swaggy Laggy Golf Daddy. Okay. That is quite the name. The caption of that Instagram reel reads, learned that the CIA, quote unquote, sponsors banks like, oh really? You don't say? Question mark. And, here's the reel in question. If it allows me to play.
Why did you put out an album 2 months before contractions on 9/11? Contract 11 on the album is called September. A year before. About it and listening to his album and talking off of like short posts that people would be like, dang, this man, like, I don't get it.
Now, I would say something. You already said everything that I would have said anyway. I was just leaving it at that. There's nothing else for me to add. It's already been said for me. One thing I will add on, which she didn't actually say, is not say that whatever we're seeing on the news right now is all coordinated. I'm not saying they're all pre-planned in advance. Whatever we're seeing in the news right now, they are somehow coordinated in the timing as it's like the Swiss rail. Everything's always connected seamlessly. It's like it's not much. It's just go with the flow, and whatever happens, just we're ready to go. There's nothing to wait. I'm just saying. I'm not trying to imply or insinuate any points. I'm just asking questions. I will simply not say that things are being pre-planned in advance. Because even if there are moments in time that have been pre-planned in advance, there's always going to be something getting in the way of trying to get whatever these groups of people want to make public, and trying to get people to watch and invest in whatever the drama is in today's society. Yeah. That makes sense. Well, of course, you don't have to be on board with it. At some point, there's going to be a growing number of people that will repeat the same lines of sentences that I just said. Not a joke. That we are genuinely serious, and they want us to actually be on board with this stuff. But if that's my point, is that what happened, I think it would already be too late. Even if there are people that want to actually do something, they still do it. And there is still hope in some capacity. The challenge in tackling the issue at hand is going to be a lot more challenging now than it would have been years ago. At that point, not many people knew about it, and there was much more that was yet to be discovered. That was my thought on it. Right. Eric sent another Instagram from the account Desire Jumps through the rabbit hole goes deep. Within Instagram reads Charlie Kirk's assassination led us down the rabbit hole. So let's see where this goes. Alright, so it's not much explanation. It's just I thought there was going to be dialogue. It's not. It's just a slideshow of things that happened. That all of a sudden it's just So I'm just looking this up now. Okay. I was just looking up this video again now. I was trying to move the slider as I'm watching the video. I thought having technical problems. So, in short, this is more like one of these videos exposing why I can't say much about the whole video. Yeah. I don't think my sliders allow me to watch the whole video and talk at the same time. What we'll do is the comment section. Because they will say what's going on. So, yeah, these comments are a bit out there. So, just heads up. And just heads up for what is yet to come. So, one person commented, once you've gone deep enough, you'll realize the two silent in rabbit hole. And the two spots emoji rabbi hole. Yeah, that comment alone is actually enough to summarize the entire video that Eric just sent to the group. Essentially, this is one of us addressing the influence of people, rabbis, Zionism. I don't know who else to add on. That is at least the brief of that video, although I haven't watched all of it. I don't think, Instagram has allowed me to just grab the slider and move back and forth. I'm not saying it's those groups of people that's responsible. I'm not going to I'm not going to point fingers. I'm not going to point fingers at Jewish people every time. You know, there are actually Jewish people that are. There are few Jewish people in this world that are actually against Zionism, and of course, there are Zionists that aren't Jewish. I'll leave it at that. In my opinion, I have nothing against Jewish people, but what I do have concerns about is the government of Israel. That's it. And just because I say I have concerns with a country's government does not mean I actively hate them. I just have concerns or questions regarding what they're doing. That is it. So yeah, that's the end of that specific. That's pretty much the brief on that Instagram reel that Eric sent to the group chat. In short, that started Red Charlie Kirk's assassination led us down the rabbit hole, and then showed moments in history where rabbis, Jewish people, and other related people had somewhat of an influence at some point over the decades as social media content was spreading. And that's my perspective. If anyone else has anything else to say, that is open. It's welcome to have those discussions. All right, so, and actually, there is other stuff in the group chat that I sent earlier, but I think I've already discussed those things in the last episode of the podcast I recorded. Then again, this episode in question is for a different podcast, so I can explain some of those things again, just not on the same podcast. But with that technicality out of the way, in my head. So, just a few hours before Eric sent stuff from Instagram, I sent a YouTube video by the channel S31. The title reads, "Why has it rained in Britain every single day in 2026? I'll play the video, it's quite short, it doesn't explain everything. 2026, rain has fallen somewhere in the UK every single day. According to the Met Office, 2026 is tracking as one of the wettest years in recent records. But the real surprise isn't in the west, it's in the southeast. Counties like are usually among the warmest and driest parts of England, averaging around 600 millimeters of rain a year. Yet in 2026, although there are already well above seasonal norms, that's unusual. Western Britain expects heavy rain in Anatolia and the Lake District. Annual rainfall exceeds 3,000 millimeters. Atlantic systems strike here first. But this year, those systems haven't moved on. Streams have kept low pressure fronts circling the entire country. So what is normally a western pattern has shifted. Britain hasn't been under constant storm, but it's been under a jet stream that simply hasn't shifted. And so it means the rain doesn't either. Yeah. Of course, I'm also made aware just before sending that video that whilst there is a north-south divide in England, I've noticed there is also an east-west divide within England as well that certainly no one is talking about. It's in regards to how much rain which part of England or the UK is getting. People that live in the west of the UK get so much rain than people living in the east. And once all the rain has fallen in the west of England, Wales, and west of Scotland, there's barely any rain left to get to the east. So in that YouTube short that I just played a while ago, if there is a significant amount of rain being poured somewhere in the east of England, or even anywhere in the south of England, then it's safe to say that there will come a point, at least twice this week, or twice in the next week, and so on, there will be rain somewhere in the west of England, Scotland, and a majority of Wales as well. So yeah, geography, what meteorological for you. And if it doesn't move, then yeah, the rain's going to keep on coming, and they will keep on coming. That's for sure. I sent a Instagram story from the account named Polymarket. The Instagram story that Polymarket said is their Twitter X post that reads, "Just in, the odds of Jesus Christ returning this year have surpassed Kamala Harris's chances of winning the next U.S. presidential election." And then Risk11 responded saying, "Project Bluebeam." Now, first time I read this on another podcast, I was like, it was a different laugh than what I just showed you, but I was kind of laughing. I got a good chuckle out of that. What Risk said. And whilst I know Project Bluebeam is in development and in the works and could possibly execute at some point, in regards to what I just shared from Polymarket's Instagram story, I doubt that this is part of Project Bluebeam. For those who don't know, Polymarket is one of the most well-known prediction betting markets. So like how you were betting on which sports team is going to win this upcoming match, or which sports team has chances of winning the upcoming championship or their domestic league title. There's a place where you can bet on certain predictions in today's world come to fruition. Say if the price of Bitcoin being around $140,000 by the end of June, the chances of Donald Trump getting impeached again, which, in my opinion, very unlikely. Last few times didn't go happen. I doubt next time that happens. Very unlikely. That's just my opinion. What else? Oh yes, the Oscars. I know. As of this recording, the Oscars already passed. I looked on Polymarket about the chances of which movie, or as well as actors and actresses, had chances of winning whichever Oscar category is up for grabs for that year's Oscars. And I'm seeing a list of familiar names, of course, that you already know by now, as well as some other new names that you may not have heard of. And to some extent, there are also other well-known names that have been in the industry for a very long time that not many people pick up on, because it's not that they're bad. Surely they'll be good enough to be nominated for an Oscar for those people being nominated. It's something about the hype around those actors and actresses that is not as much as the well-known names that a lot of people unanimously would know across the world. So yeah, and of course, with the Oscars being won, if the person that was betting on a particular actor/actress or a specific movie to win that Oscar award for that particular category, those people would win a massive payout, depending on how much money those people betted on that to win. You can now bet on anything these days. Any predictions on the future, what's going to happen in today's world, and people get paid big money for it too. So back to the point about what Risk said about Project Bluebeam. I'm aware Project Bluebeam exists. There will be people that will utilize elements of religious texts and prophecies to say, the end is near, you must do this thing or that thing, say this, have belief on something, point. Not that it'll happen soon, or in the distant future. I feel like when we see or hear whatever goes on, it's to scare us. And it works. It works very effectively. From the years that I've been doing these podcast episodes and looked at whatever goes on in this world, I already know too much of how, whether it be people attempting to be performative with what they say and do, when there's word about what they're doing and saying somewhere around the world, as well as the timings. Not that it's intentional to be made public exactly at that time, the moment such new information comes out that not many people knew, and the attention these stories grab towards those people. I'm not going to say there should be a way to fix this. That's life. That's the world we live in. So, yeah, that's all there is to it. And that is the stuff that the group chat has been shared. So now, with that being said, let's get into the rest of the news. Lindsey Vonn says surgery saved her from having her left leg amputated following Olympic crash. Lindsey Vonn, the Olympic medalist, says she nearly lost her left leg after clipping a gate 13 seconds into a February 8th run at the Milan Cortina Olympics, and being airlifted from Cortina d'Ampezzo, Italy, because she tore her left ACL shortly before the Olympics. Team USA surgeon Tom Hackett was in Cortina, enabling immediate care that she credits with saving her leg. The injury produced compartment syndrome in Vonn's left leg, and Dr. Tom Hackett performed a vasectomy to relieve pressure from bleeding and swelling, preventing permanent injury. After surgeries in Italy, Vonn has been discharged and is staying at a hotel, having undergone more than 5 surgeries and suffered a complex tibia fracture and right ankle break. The crash paused the race and left teammates watching as Lindsey Vonn was airlifted from the course during the downhill competition, underscoring the event's immediate shock. And I'm glad to hear that she's okay. She's been discharged and she could somewhat continue with her. I'm not going to say she can continue with the Winter Olympics. I think that window has closed, unfortunately, in my opinion. If you still want to continue with the sport that she is competing in, there's still chances that she can continue to do so. To say if she would ever advance for this year's Winter Olympics, honestly, I'm not too sure. I'd assume that window's already closed, and maybe the next round of whatever sport she's competing in would have already happened, or is about to start, and there's no way for her to get back into it. In life, problems, technicalities, they hit us when we least expect it. That's quite sad to hear, unfortunately. Police are finding suspects based on their online searches as court weighs privacy concerns. Last month, the U.S. Supreme Court agreed to review reverse keyword warrants as criminal investigators have asked Google to identify who searched specific terms. With few leads, investigators turn to Google search data because it can point to who sought addresses or names. Prosecutors say the method works best with distinctive search terms or planned crimes. In Pennsylvania, a warrant directing Google to disclose accounts that searched a victim's name or address led police to John Edward Kurt's home, DNA match, and a 59 to 280-year sentence. Privacy advocates warned warrants could give police unfettered access, while Google refused and objects to overbroad law enforcement requests amid a court split involving 3 justices. Unlike geofence warrants, reverse keyword warrants work backwards from queries and raise distinct legal questions, when a Brazilian high court is expected to decide soon, and Google's search AI may deepen privacy concerns. I got one thing to say. If there are people that are guilty of anything, and what they have done is indeed illegal and a serious concern for people's safety and privacy, well, mostly a concern for people's safety,
what's going to happen if platforms like Google, Amazon, Facebook, these big companies, when approached by local or national authorities, when they ask, we want to look some information up on this person or that person, companies be like, okay, here you go, here's your access. Well, what does that do for consumer confidence? What would these consumers of these companies' services think if these companies are going to allow authorities to look into the data of these consumers? In my opinion, I believe this would deter people from using those services from those companies never or if ever again. Most likely, these consumers would no longer want to use these services from these companies again, and would look for alternatives that aren't well known, yet the service they provide ensures protection for people's data and the information that these people have. That's what I would say on that. And whilst it is important for local authorities to do whatever investigations they can to look into whatever these people have done and what kind of concern that these people would do to other civilians wherever they may be in this world, it is also important that if there is information that people don't want people to know, those consumers are entitled to keep those information regarding them safe from being known by anyone. And I'm not going to defending information that would otherwise prevent authorities from putting a stop to thwarts or even large-scale casualties, whether it be digitally or in the physical world. Surely there has to be authorities that should know exactly what's going to happen and stop the culprits or infiltrators as soon as possible and effectively as possible. It's also another concern for those people who are just getting on with their lives. They don't have any ambition to do any harm to anyone or anything. There is information that they don't want to give to anyone or anything. Those people should be entitled to be given the protection from such entities or groups of people that would use such information for their own gain or as a way to impersonate that person, as a way to get away with whatever mischievous misdemeanors that the infiltrators or criminals would potentially use such information for. Mainstream schools to receive extra funding for SEND pupils as part of £4 billion package. The government says it will spend £4 billion to make mainstream schools in England more inclusive for pupils with special education needs and disabilities, SEND, including £1.6 billion going directly to schools, early year settings, and colleges over 3 years. Under the plans, Children's Education, Health and Care Plans, EHCPs, would be reassessed after leaving primary school and after GCSEs, raising concerns among parents about potential withdrawal of support. Teaching unions said the £1.6 billion funding over 3 years is barely a drop in the bucket due to years of underfunding, and that families need children's needs identified early and given the right help straight away. That is very important. Yes, I agree. Yeah, that's very important. Whatever physical or psychological limitations that people with additional or special needs have, it is very important that such support is given to those children and pupils as effectively and swiftly as possible. And whilst someone in the national government has the funds to provide such support, I would say we shouldn't just rely on the national government to provide such support. I would also say that local governments should put as much of a footing as the national government in regards to providing children or pupils with special needs with the support that they need. Whilst the national government has the money to provide funding to schools nationwide, it would be just as effective, if not more effective, and beneficial to have local governments of whatever tier to also provide as much dedication and funding allocation as much as what the national government is providing. That is what I will say. There's nothing else for me to say. Whilst the national government, whether it be Labour or the Tories, as they are the shadow cabinet, as they are governments, we can't just rely on the national government to get funding for everything. Local governments of any tier should also dedicate as much of a footing and funding allocation as much as the national government does. NASA will return its moon rocket to the hangar for more repairs before astronauts strap in. This week, NASA's Artemis 2 moon rocket is headed back to the vehicle assembly building for repairs and is grounded until at least April, with Tuesday targeted for the slow rollback. Engineers have just finished repeat fueling tests when NASA detected a helium system malfunction, disrupting helium flow of the upper stage needed to purge engines and pressurize fuel tanks. The 3 Americans and 1 Canadian assigned to Artemis 2 remain on standby in Houston, and the mission will be the first human lunar flight since the Apollo program's 24 astronauts. NASA said the quick rollback preparations aim to preserve an April launch attempt, but emphasized the timeline depends on repair speed with limited monthly launch opportunities for the crew of 4. Consecutive propellant issues, hydrogen leaks, then helium malfunction further delay astronauts' first trip to the moon in more than half a century and complicate NASA's return to deep space exploration. I'm not going to just jump the gun on this and say people saying that these problems are happening because this is a way to get out of showing proof that people can go into space. There isn't a firmament and such. No, I'm not going to be like that. As there's also a strict detection and very strict repair standards for spacecraft as there is for airplanes. When people ask, how come there haven't been much accidents in the air with commercial air travel? And even where there have been a few that had crashed, killing tons of people in the last few years, there haven't been as many plane crashes as there have been crashes with much fatalities with cars, lorries, trains, or even boats. People that work in aircraft manufacturing know that even the tiniest dent in its body, its wings, or propellers would mean a disaster for these aircraft. Spacecrafts and rockets are no different. It is very important that no dent is left undetected, or even a scratch. So I'll give NASA that. That does not mean there won't be people that will say, there's a firmament. NASA is trying to deceive people. We can't go out of space. I want to see if we can go to space. Even if there are people saying, oh, that's not possible. It is worth trying. And also, are the same groups of people that are saying there is no space, there's a firmament, we can't go beyond that, also the same people that are supporting Elon Musk with his SpaceX program? Because again, Elon Musk is doing the same thing as NASA is with SpaceX. SpaceX is also building rockets. They're doing launch missions. There's dedicated teams to ensuring there are repairs, making sure that maintenance is up to date with these rockets that's been sent. So that's that for perspective. There are layers to what people believe is possible if we could go out to space. Who knows? Maybe those people will be proved wrong. Or maybe those people would be proved right, that there is a firmament. We can't go into space, and the only way we could explore new life is we could go beyond the ice wall that is Antarctica. Again, I'm just saying, it's even if I don't believe in that stuff, there's someone that does. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens next with NASA. Surely a mission will go ahead at some point, like with Apollo all those years ago. We'll just have to give it some time to see if things can go ahead, the repairs have been done, and of course we are allowed to observe whatever is going on in space without any issues whatsoever. Activists hang Andrew arrest photo at Louvre Museum to protest Epstein-related misconduct on February 22nd, 2026. Activists from Everyone Hates Elon hung a framed Reuters photograph of Andrew Mountbatten Windsor inside the Musée du Louvre near the Mona Lisa, which staff removed after 15 minutes. On February 19th, 2026, Mountbatten Windsor was arrested in Norfolk, UK, detained for nearly 11 hours while police searched properties in Norfolk and Berkshire, UK. Posting a video on Instagram, the group showed activists mounting a framed Reuters photo of Andrew Mountbatten Windsor with a caption reading, "He's sweating now, 2026," while museum visitors photographed the display. UK police said Mountbatten Windsor was released under investigation, and no charges were filed, allowing detectives to continue inquiries, the authorities noted. By placing the image in the Louvre, activists aimed to amplify calls for accountability, as the US Justice Department released emails appearing to show Mountbatten Windsor sharing reports from official trade visits with Epstein under investigation. Well, isn't that hilarious? A picture of Andrew Mountbatten Windsor was hung up in the Louvre in France, and of course, 15 minutes later, someone just take it down, because that's not part of our exhibition. We can't have that. And well, whoever's working at the Louvre is certainly doing their job, ensuring that whatever artwork has to be presented has to be where they are, taking down what isn't part of the curation or exhibition. 15 minutes. Wow, that is something. Whether it be a desperate attempt to conceal public-wide attention, which of course it failed, and looking at how much attention that painting was even hung up before it was taken down. The attention alone must be wild. It must be so noticeable. Someone has got a lot of questions to answer. And whatever happens after that. Surely whatever with the Epstein files is not over yet. Whatever the cinematic universe of the Epstein file is, just know for sure something is only getting worse for those accused of being on that island. And yeah, that's all I have to say, and that is the episode.